Son, I need to borrow $1,000.
Tell him to get another job. We're not a bank.
My wife humiliated my father for asking to borrow $1,000. 3 days later, he was rushed into emergency surgery, and the hospital gave me a sealed envelope with one warning written across the front. Do not let Natalie see this. Inside was proof that the woman I had called my wife for 6 years had never entered our marriage honestly. But the unfinished divorce was only the beginning. By the time I learned what she had planned to do with my house, my father's signature, and nearly $70,000 of my money, she had already made one mistake she could never undo. She had mistaken my father's kindness for weakness. Hello, everyone. My name is Grant Mercer. I was 38 years old when this happened, and I lived outside Colorado Springs with my wife, Natalie. Until that week, I believed my marriage had problems, but I did not believe it was built on a lie. I was wrong. Before I continue, tell me where you are listening from. Which city or country has this story reached? Please leave it in the comments below. I would truly like to know how far my father's story travels. It began on a Tuesday afternoon in my kitchen. My father, Raymond Mercer, stood beside the table with his weathered hands clasped in front of him. He had spent more than 30 years working construction beneath the unforgiving Colorado sun. He would patch his own roof in a snowstorm before asking another person to hold the ladder. That was why the tremble in his hands frightened me. I need to borrow $1,000, he said, only for a few weeks. Before I could ask why, Natalie looked up from the marble counter. Tell him to get another job, she said flatly. We are not some kind of bank. The room became so quiet that I heard the refrigerator motor switch off. Dad's shoulders folded inward. His eyes dropped to the floor. In 38 years, I had seen him exhausted, injured, angry, and once completely broken after my mother died. I had never seen him look small. Natalie had done that with one sentence. That is enough, I told her. She crossed her arms. What? Someone had to say it. My father raised one hand. I should go. No, Dad. Come outside with me. I led him through the back door before Natalie could say anything worse. The afternoon was warm, but he kept rubbing his palms together as if he were cold. Beyond the fence, the mountains were dark blue against the sky. Dad stared at them instead of looking at me. I did not come here to cause trouble between you two, he said. If you cannot help, I understand. You have never asked me for money before. Tell me what is happening. He hesitated. I need certified copies of old records. I also need a lawyer for a few hours, and there is a test that has to be completed. A medical test. No, a document test. That answer made even less sense. What records? I asked. He looked toward the house. I followed his eyes and saw Natalie watching us through the glass door. Adoption files, he whispered. Whose adoption? I need proof before I tell you everything. Proof of what? He finally faced me. There was fear in his eyes, but it was not fear for himself. If I am wrong, I will apologize. But if I am right, someone may say I am old, confused, or trying to interfere with your marriage. I cannot come to you with half a truth. Son, who would accuse you of being confused? He did not answer. Instead, he rested one rough hand on my shoulder. I am trying to give you something I should have given you 3 years ago. What happened 3 years ago? Please, give me until Monday. I wanted to keep questioning him, but I saw what it had already cost him to come to my door. This was the man who had sold his motorcycle to cover part of my college tuition. He had pawned his only good suit when I was 9 so I could have proper shoes for school. Years later, he sold the last parcel of land inherited from his mother and used most of the money to help me buy my house. He never told me about the motorcycle or the suit. Other people did. Dad gave without announcing it. He sacrificed without expecting gratitude. And now, for the first time in his life, he needed something from me. "Wait here," I said. I went to my office and opened the small safe beneath my desk. Inside was an envelope containing emergency cash. As I counted out 10 $100 bills, Natalie appeared in the doorway. "You are actually giving it to him?" "Yes. We agreed to discuss large expenses." "We are discussing it." "No, you decided. And now you are pretending my opinion matters." "He has never asked me for money." "That does not mean it will not become a habit." I stared at her. "He is my father, and this is our house." The way she said it made me pause. The house was not ours. Legally, it was mine. I had bought it 2 years before our wedding, with Dad paying most of the down payment. Natalie's name had never been on the deed. She knew that because she had brought it up repeatedly during our marriage. I carried the money to the front door and handed it to Dad. His fingers trembled as they closed around the envelope. "I will repay you," he said. "You do not need to." He looked past my shoulder at Natalie. Usually, he hugged me before leaving. That day, he slipped the envelope inside his jacket, walked down the steps, and climbed into his old truck without touching me. The moment I closed the door, Natalie turned on me. "You made me look like an idiot. You embarrassed him first. Hay would not even tell you what the money was for? Hay will explain when he is ready. You always choose him over me." I looked directly at her. "He spent my entire childhood choosing me." We barely spoke for the rest of the evening. On Thursday night, I woke shortly after 2 in the morning and found Natalie standing near the bedroom window with my phone in her hand. "What are you doing?" I asked. She turned too quickly. "Your phone kept vibrating." "Who called?" "No one. It was an email notification." She placed it on my nightstand and returned to bed. I checked the screen, but there was no new email. I told myself I was tired. I told myself she had probably cleared the notification by accident. The next morning, while I was getting ready for work, she asked a strange question. "Did your father say what kind of documents he wanted?" I stopped buttoning my shirt. "Why?" "I am curious about where our money went." He said he would explain Monday. Her face tightened for half a second. Then she smiled. "Fine. I hope his explanation is worth $1,000. At 10:47 that morning, my phone rang from a number I did not recognize. "Is this Grant Mercer?" a woman asked. "Wes? I am calling from Valley Regional Hospital. Raymond Mercer listed you as his emergency contact." I stood so fast that my office chair rolled into the wall. "What happened?" "Your father collapsed at the county records building. The doctors discovered an aortic aneurysm. He has been taken into emergency surgery." My hand tightened around the phone. "Is he alive?" "He was stable when he entered the operating room." I could barely breathe. Then the woman continued. "Before he was sedated, he asked us to give you a sealed envelope. There is also an attorney here waiting to speak with you. Her name is Priya Desai." "An attorney?" "Yes. Your father left very specific instructions. He said you must not discuss the contents of the envelope with your wife until you have spoken privately with Ms. Desai." For a moment, the office disappeared around me. What does Natalie have to do with this? "I am sorry. Your father did not explain." I grabbed my keys and drove to the hospital. Later, I could not remember a single traffic light or turn. All I could picture was Dad beneath surgical lights, surrounded by strangers. His chest opened because something inside him had almost burst. When I reached the surgical waiting area, a woman in a charcoal suit stood as soon as I said my name at the desk. "Grant, I am Priya Desai." She looked to be in her early 40s. Her voice was calm, but she did not offer the empty reassurance people use when they do not know what else to say. "Your father hired me yesterday," she said. Before he lost consciousness, he asked that I remain until you arrived. She handed me a thick cream-colored envelope. My name was written across the front in Dad's careful block letters. Beneath it, in red ink, were the words that made my stomach turn. Do not let Natalie see this. Speak to Priya first. Is my father going to survive? I asked. The surgeon will speak to us when there is news. Raymond wanted you to read his letter while we wait. We sat in a private consultation room. I broke the seal. The first page was handwritten. Son, if you are reading this, I may not have had the courage or the time to say these things myself. I am sorry I waited. I wanted to be certain, because a false accusation can destroy a family as quickly as a true one. What is inside this envelope is not a command. It is the truth as I found it. What you do with it must be your choice. I looked at Priya. What truth? Keep reading. The next page was a report from a licensed private investigator. At the top were 2 photographs. One showed Natalie as I knew her now. The other was an older driver's license photograph of a woman named Natalie Hart Kessler. They were the same person. I read the name 3 times. Attached to the report was a marriage certificate from Larimer County. 8 years before meeting me, Natalie Hart had married a man named Owen Kessler. I felt shocked, but not yet betrayed. People had pasts. People divorced. Natalie had told me she had once been engaged, but perhaps she had been too ashamed to admit it had become a marriage. Then I turned the page. It was a final divorce decree. The date was 11 days after our wedding. On the day Natalie stood beside me in front of 112 guests and promised that no legal barrier existed between us, she was still married to Owen Kessler. My fingers went numb. Is this real? I whispered. They are certified court records, Priya said. Your father used part of the money you gave him to obtain them. Why the adoption files? Priya opened a blue folder. Natalie was born Natalie Hart. When she was 14, her stepfather adopted her, and her legal surname became Blake. Kessler was her married name. The adoption file and name change order connect Natalie Hart Kessler to Natalie Blake Mercer. Without that connection, she could have argued that the earlier record belonged to a different woman with a similar birth date. That was why Dad had needed certified copies. He had been building a chain that could not be dismissed as confusion. How did he discover this? Priya pointed to another page. 3 years earlier, Dad had been at my house repairing the back steps. A courier arrived while Natalie was away and asked for her former surname. Dad assumed the man had the wrong address, but he wrote down the name on a scrap of wood before sending him away. Kessler. 2 weeks later, Dad saw the same name on a bank statement lying open in my office. It appeared beside a payment for $5,000. Dad asked Natalie about it. She told him it was a contractor and warned him to stop examining our private papers. But Dad had worked with nearly every major contractor in our county. He had never heard of Kessler Renovation Consulting. He searched the business registry. The owner was Owen Kessler. The report showed a photograph of Owen standing outside a small office in Denver. On his left hand was a wedding band. Are they still together? I asked. We do not know, Priya said. But there is more. I reached the sentence that changed my shock into something colder. An email from Natalie to her divorce attorney had been recovered through a court filing. It was dated 17 days before our wedding. Is there any way to make the final order effective before June 12th? Grant cannot learn about the delay. I have too much depending on this marriage. I stopped reading. She had known. This was not a missing form she discovered later. She knew before she wore the dress. She knew before she looked into my eyes. She knew when Dad gave us a wooden box containing the last money from his mother's land and told us to build a secure life. She had known every second. What did she mean by too much depending on this marriage? I asked. Priya placed a second folder in front of me. Inside was a photocopy of a document titled Gift and Marital Property Acknowledgement. It stated that the money Dad contributed toward my down payment had been intended as a joint gift to both me and my future spouse. The final paragraph claimed he understood that Natalie had an equal marital interest in the house. At the bottom was Raymond Mercer's signature. My father never signed this. He said the same thing. I remembered his words in the backyard. There is a test that has to be completed. The document test, I said. Priya nodded. A forensic examiner compared this signature with 20 verified examples. The conclusion is that the signature was traced. The pressure, stroke rhythm, and hesitation marks are inconsistent with your father's natural writing. Dad had spent my $1,000 on court files, a few hours of legal advice, and the final portion of that forensic examination. He had not borrowed money because he failed to manage his life. He had borrowed it to protect mine. Where did this document come from? A home, equity application submitted in your name. My heart began to pound. The application requested $180,000 against my house. It listed Natalie as a co-owner. It included the false gift statement and a copy of my digital signature on a page I had never seen. The requested closing date was the following Monday. That is impossible, I said. I never applied for a loan. Your father received a verification call because his phone number appeared on the gift statement. Natalie may have expected the lender to contact him. She called him last month and asked him to say the down payment was a gift to both of you if anyone asked. I remembered Dad becoming strangely quiet whenever Natalie entered a room. I had mistaken restraint for dislike. In truth, he had been carrying a secret that grew more dangerous every day. Why did he wait 3 years? Priya's expression softened. Because the first payment and the old surname proved nothing. Your father feared that if he accused her without evidence, you would push him out of your life. He also hoped the transfers would stop. When the lender called about the gift statement, he understood that waiting was no longer protecting you. I looked again at the forged signature. Natalie had not insulted him because she believed he was irresponsible. She had insulted him because she knew he was close to proving the truth. She needed me to see him as old, needy, and confused before he could speak. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Natalie. Where are you? Is Raymond okay? Did he leave anything for you? Not how is he doing? Not will he survive. Did he leave anything for you? Priya saw my face. Do not confront her yet, she said. The lender can freeze the application, but if she realizes you know everything, records may disappear. I called Natalie from the hallway. Dad is in surgery, I said. That is terrible. What happened? Her voice was gentle now. Concerned. It was the voice she used in public. An aneurysm. Did the hospital give you his belongings? There it was again. His wallet and keys. Nothing else. I looked through the glass window at the envelope on the table. No, I lied. The silence lasted less than a second, but I heard her relief. I can come sit with you, she offered. No, I will call when I know more. After we ended the call, Priya helped me contact the lender's fraud department. They froze the home equity application. I changed the passwords on my personal email and separate bank account. Then we requested detailed records from the joint account. At 4:20 that afternoon, the surgeon entered the waiting room. Dad had survived. The aneurysm had ruptured just as they began operating, but the team repaired it. The surgeon warned me that the next 24 hours were critical. I thanked him until my voice broke. When I was finally allowed into the recovery room, Dad looked smaller beneath the blankets than he had in my kitchen. Tubes surrounded him. Machines measured every breath and heartbeat. I stood beside him and held the same rough hand that had taught me how to use a hammer, tie my shoes, and drive through snow. You were right, I whispered. and I am sorry you had to prove it alone." He could not hear me. Or perhaps he could. His fingers moved once against mine. I stayed until after midnight. When I returned home, Natalie was sitting in the living room with all the lights on. "You said you would call," she said. "The surgery took longer than expected. Is he alive?" "Yes." She pressed one hand to her chest. "Thank goodness." Then her eyes moved to the thin hospital bag in my hand. "Is that all they gave you?" "His clothes." I walked past her before my face revealed what I knew. That night, I lay beside a woman who had lied at our wedding, hidden a husband, transferred money to him, forged my father's signature, and tried to borrow against my home. She fell asleep within minutes. I did not close my eyes. The next morning, the bank records arrived. During the previous 3 years, Natalie had transferred $68,400 to Kessler Renovation Consulting. The payments were labeled kitchen work, roof repair, basement drainage, and electrical updates. None of that work had been done. The amounts were small at first: $1,200, $1,800, then $5,000, $8,000, and finally a transfer of $15,000, 2 months before Dad entered the hospital. Most had come from the joint account into which I deposited my salary. Priya and I met with an investigator from the lender. He confirmed that the home equity funds were scheduled to be sent to an account belonging to Kessler Renovation Consulting. "If your father had not answered that verification call," he said, "this might have closed Monday. $180,000 would have disappeared into Owen's company, while the debt remained attached to my house." I felt physically sick, but I still needed to understand why. Was Owen blackmailing her over the unfinished divorce? Were they lovers? Was she frightened of him? Part of me searched for an explanation that would turn Natalie back into someone I recognized. Priya warned me that explanations did not erase signatures, but she understood why I needed answers. The private investigator arranged a meeting with Owen at a coffee shop in Denver. He told Owen only that a problem had emerged with the loan. I sat at a table in the back while the investigator waited near the entrance. Owen arrived 12 minutes late. He was tall, neatly dressed, and far too relaxed for a man meeting the current husband of the woman he had once married. "So Natalie finally told you." Those 5 words answered one question. He knew about me. "She told me enough," I said. He leaned back. "Then you know the money Monday fixes everything. Explain what everything means." His smile faded slightly. "Her share in our original property deal. The divorce left certain debts unresolved. $68,000 was not enough." He studied my face, realizing too late that I knew more than he expected. "You should ask your wife." "I am asking you." He stood. "This conversation is finished." I placed a copy of the forged gift acknowledgement on the table. Owen froze. "My father never signed this," I said. "The lender knows. Their fraud investigator knows. My attorney knows. So you can walk away, or you can tell me why my wife was sending you my money." He sat down again. For the first time, he looked nervous. Owen claimed Natalie had approached him 3 years earlier. She wanted to invest in a luxury home renovation business, but she did not want me to know. Her plan was to use my house as security, fund several projects, and repay the loan before I noticed. The business failed before it began. Owen used most of the first payments to cover old gambling debts. Natalie then sent more money to prevent him from telling me about their unfinished divorce and her secret investment. Every payment made the next payment necessary. By the time Dad noticed his name on the gift statement, and Natalie and Owen were trying to borrow $180,000 to pay off the losses, settle Owen's debts, and make the records disappear. "Was your relationship with her only business?" I asked. Owen looked toward the window. That was an answer. "How long?" "It ended last year. I did not feel the explosion of anger I expected. I felt a door close somewhere inside me. The marriage overlap could have been a terrible secret born from fear. The money could have begun as a reckless mistake. But the affair, the forged signature, and the planned loan were decisions she repeated over years. Confusion was no longer possible. Natalie had not been trapped in one lie. She had built a home inside it. Owen tried to make a deal. He offered emails, invoices, and messages if I promised not to pursue the money he had received. I told him I had no authority to promise what the lender, the district attorney, or a civil court might do. Then I left him sitting beside the forged signature of the man he had underestimated. That evening, I visited Dad in intensive care. He was awake, though weak, his eyes open when I spoke his name. "You found it," he whispered. "All of it." His eyes filled with worry. "I did not want to break your life." I moved closer so he would not have to raise his voice. "You did not break it. You stopped someone from stealing what was left of it. Do not decide while you are angry." Even from a hospital bed, he was protecting me from becoming someone I might regret. "I will decide based on the truth," I promised. He nodded and fell asleep. Before confronting Natalie, I took 3 careful steps. First, I redirected my salary into my separate account and left the existing joint money untouched until a court could decide what belonged to whom. Second, Priya filed an emergency notice challenging the loan documents and a petition asking the court to determine the legal status of our marriage. Third, I gave the lender and the police copies of the forged gift statement, the false invoices, and the digital records attached to the application. I did not scream. I did not threaten anyone. I simply placed the truth where Natalie could no longer reach it. Then I asked her to sit with me at the same kitchen table where she had humiliated Dad. She saw the folders and stopped walking. "What is this? Sit down." "Grant, you are frightening me. On our wedding day, did you know your divorce from Owen was not final?" The color drained from her face. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then she sat. "It was a paperwork delay," she said. "The judge had already approved everything." That was not my question. It became final 11 days later. It changed nothing. "Did you know?" She looked down at her hands. "Natalie, I need the truth once, even if it is 6 years late." The silence stretched between us. Finally, she whispered, "Yes." That answer mattered more than every explanation that followed. She had known. She said she feared I would cancel the wedding. She said her parents would have been humiliated. She said the venue deposits were non-refundable. She said she loved me and planned to explain later. Later became 6 years, I said, because it no longer mattered. I placed the bank records on the table. Did $68,000 matter? Her breathing changed. "I can explain those payments." "Did Owen matter?" Her eyes lifted to mine. "He is blackmailing me. He says you were sleeping together until last year. He is lying." I set down copies of messages the investigator had obtained from Owen. Some discussed money. Others discussed hotel rooms and excuses Natalie would give me. She read only the first page before pushing them away. "He manipulated me." "Did he manipulate you into tracing my father's signature?" For the first time, her fear turned into anger. "Your father had no right to interfere in our finances." "There it is," I said quietly.
What?
"The same contempt you showed him when he asked for $1,000. You knew exactly why he needed it. You were not worried that he was irresponsible. You were terrified he was finishing the evidence." She stood so quickly that the chair scraped the floor. "He has hated me from the beginning." "No. He kept your secret for 3 years because he was afraid of accusing you without proof. It destroyed our marriage. You were still married to Owen when ours began. Do not blame my father for the calendar." She started crying. I had seen those tears before, usually when an argument moved too close to something she did not want to discuss. In the past, they made me stop asking questions. That night, I let them fall. "We can fix this," she said. "I will repay the money. I will sign whatever you want. We can go to counseling." The loan was scheduled to close Monday. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. $180,000, Natalie, against a house my father helped me buy, using his forged signature. It was going to be temporary. Debt is never temporary to the person whose home secures it. She reached across the table for my hand. I moved it away. "Are you leaving me? A court is going to decide whether you were legally free to marry me in the first place. After that, it will decide the money. The fraud investigators will decide the documents. For once, you do not control what happens next. Grant, please. I need time, and this decision is mine. You do not get to pressure me toward staying or leaving." She stared at me. Then she asked the question that ended any remaining doubt. "Does your father have the original report at his house? Not whether I still loved her, not whether Dad would recover. She wanted to know where the evidence was." "Why?" I asked. "I was only wondering." "The originals are safe." I did not tell her they were already in Priya's office. Natalie packed a suitcase and went to stay with her sister. 2 hours later, Dad's neighbor called me. His security camera had recorded Natalie entering Dad's house with an old spare key. She remained inside for 14 minutes. When police arrived, they found desk drawers open and papers scattered across the bedroom floor. Nothing valuable was missing, because the only thing she wanted was no longer there. Natalie claimed Dad had once given her permission to enter. The prosecutor did not immediately file a burglary charge, but the video destroyed her claim that she was simply a frightened wife trying to save her marriage. She was trying to save herself. The following months moved slowly, but the truth did not retreat. The court determined that our original marriage ceremony had occurred while Natalie still had a legal spouse. After several hearings, our legal relationship was dissolved and the house remained mine. The forged gift acknowledgement gave Natalie no interest in it. The lender permanently canceled the home equity application. Its fraud team provided records showing that the digital signature attached to my application had come from a device registered to Natalie. Owen eventually gave investigators the original messages in exchange for consideration in his own case. Those messages showed that he and Natalie planned the loan together. They had even discussed selling 2 renovation projects to repay it before I checked the account. They called me careful but predictable. They called Dad an old man who could be confused if necessary. That sentence hurt more than the messages about the affair. Natalie worked as a senior loan processor. She understood exactly what false documents could do. Her employer suspended her after learning about the application, and she later lost the job. The state licensing board opened its own investigation. The criminal case ended quietly. Natalie accepted responsibility for attempted financial fraud and submitting a false instrument. Owen pleaded to related charges and was ordered to repay part of the money his company received. In the civil settlement, Natalie surrendered her claim to the remaining joint funds and agreed to repay $46,000 over time. I did not recover everything. Courts cannot return years, trust, or the version of yourself that believed a lie. But she did not get my house. She did not get the $180,000. And she did not get to turn my father's kindness into evidence of weakness. 2 weeks after surgery, Dad was released from the hospital. I drove him home, stocked his refrigerator, arranged his medications, and wrote the dosage schedule in letters large enough for him to read without his glasses. He fell asleep in his chair while a baseball game played quietly on television. When he woke, he noticed me sitting across from him. "You are still here," he said. I am still here. Then, because he was Raymond Mercer, he mentioned the money. I will repay the $1,000. I almost laughed. Forget it. I owe you. Dade, you spent my entire life paying me back for things I never even knew you gave me. We are more than even. You became quiet. What did you decide about Natalie? He asked. I decided that a marriage cannot survive when one person treats the truth as an enemy. I am ending it. Dad nodded once. Good, he said. Then he looked directly at me. But make sure it is good, because it is your choice, not because it is mine. It is my choice. I never wanted to tell you what to do. I only wanted you to know what was being done to you. That was who my father had always been. He sold a motorcycle without mentioning it. He pawned his best suit without expecting gratitude. He used family land to help me buy a home. He spent 3 years gathering evidence he hoped he would never need to show me. And when the truth finally came out, he still refused to choose my future for me. You gave me a lot, I said. His answer came immediately. You deserved it. During his recovery, I visited every Tuesday and Saturday. At first, I cooked and cleaned while he argued that he could manage alone. Later, we took short walks to the end of the block. Eventually, those walks became a mile. One Saturday, we drove past my house. Natalie had collected the last of her belongings under the terms of the temporary court order. The rooms were quieter, but they no longer felt false. Dad looked toward the front steps he had repaired 3 years earlier. Do you want to sell it? He asked. No. Too many memories. Some bad, some good. But the house did not betray me. A person did. He smiled at that. In spring, we replaced the kitchen table. The old one had become a symbol of Natalie humiliating him, lying to me, and finally being confronted. I thought removing it would feel like victory. Instead, the most meaningful moment came when Dad helped me carry in the new one. He was still thin from surgery, so I took most of the weight. For once, he allowed me to. We set the table beneath the window. Then I made the simple chicken and noodle soup he used to cook whenever I was sick as a child. We ate from mismatched bowls and talked about ordinary things. His neighbor's dog, a construction project across town, a book he kept claiming he would finish. Nothing dramatic, nothing about Natalie, lawyers, or court records. And somewhere during that quiet meal, I realized that justice was not only the punishment Natalie received. Justice was my father sitting safely in the home he had helped me build. Justice was his name cleared from the forged paper. Justice was the fact that he no longer had to stand in my kitchen with his hands shaking, wondering whether I would believe him. Before I end, let me briefly summarize what happened. My father asked me for $1,000, and my wife treated him like a burden. In reality, he needed the money to obtain certified records, hire an attorney, and prove his signature had been forged. His investigation revealed that Natalie was still married to another man on our wedding day. It also exposed years of secret transfers, an affair, and a plan to borrow $180,000 against my house. Because Dad acted before it was too late, the loan was stopped, the fraud was exposed, and the people responsible faced legal and financial consequences. What did I learn from this story? First, quiet people are not weak. Sometimes they are gathering facts while louder people are creating excuses. Second, kindness should never be confused with permission. My father gave generously, but that did not give anyone the right to use his name or sacrifice. Third, truth offered with evidence is a form of love. Dad did not order me to leave Natalie. He gave me the truth and trusted me to make my own decision. And finally, when someone tries to make a loyal person look foolish, ask what they are afraid that person may reveal. Thank you for watching and listening. Please like this story and leave a comment. And if you have not already done so, tell me where you are listening from. My father came to my door asking for $1,000. but the truth he bought with it saved my home, my future, and my name. He thought he owed me a debt. The truth was that I could spend the rest of my life repaying him and still never equal what he gave me.